Welcome to today's workshop, Measuring the Real Impact of Influencer Marketing. Please welcome Keith Bendies, Vice President of Brand Strategy at Linqia.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for picking this session. This is more like an hour and a half talk that we're going to do in 30 minutes. That will be a little bit challenging, but let's see what we can do. And by the way, two things I would call out. We're going to do a little survey thing to get everyone's understanding of how your challenges, et cetera. So they're going to throw a QR code to do the questions so you can answer the questions. So be ready for that. And then I would say one theme. This is like my favorite meme of the year. I don't know if anyone's seen this or read this, but it's not that easy, this conversation of measurement. I think every brand, regardless of what they say, wants conversions, wants full funnel. So it's an important conversation to have because it's not that easy for everything to just be full funnel. So this is a lot of what we're going to talk about. Before we start, I do want to get some feedback. So can we queue up some of the questions to see where everyone stands? So if you scan this, you can answer. It's super quick. Just when it comes to influencer marketing, what is your number one KPI? Again, keep the meme in mind. I know you want all of them. But if you were to pick one, what would the one be? And it takes a few seconds, so we'll let everybody answer. Okay, we're getting some answers in. A little flipping. Oh, okay. Yeah. So every year we do a big state of influencer marketing report that actually launches in 2 weeks, I believe. I'm going to throw up something at the end where everyone can get a free copy who's here. So actually we separate reach and engagement in that one. So reach was number one this year, engagement was number two, conversions was number three. So I'm sure this is going to be pretty similar to this. But that's really interesting to see, pretty consistent with what we see. The other thing I'd say is I had a conversation with my wife a couple weeks ago. We were talking about like happiness, like actual happiness in life. And the conversation was there's no coefficient for that. It's a little bit of happiness at work. It's happiness with our children. It's happiness as partners. So I'm so skeptical when I hear like this coefficient of success in influencer marketing or in marketing in general. I think it's the combination of a lot of things that drives performance. So very interesting, thank you. This is the next one. What is the biggest challenge? I'm going to hold on telling you what the report said until I see what you all say. Biggest challenge. Ooh. Let's give it a few more seconds for them to come in. Oh, wow. Fascinating. Okay, so the report, measurement, by far number one. Actually picking the right influencers was number two. I think it's interesting to see getting internal budget. So that's why we're having this conversation. I think everyone is pretty challenged with measurement right now, trying to figure it out. So again, we got 27 minutes to go through how to measure. Really quick. Here we go. 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 of influencer marketing. 1.0 a few years ago, all about influencers and their followers, who has reach, who has influence, get them to post, get them to engage with their followers. 2.0, which I'd argue we're kind of coming to the tail end of, was that plus the impact of content for brands and social, both paid and owned. And how do you measure that? How do you drive against that? And then we've kind of entered 3.0 now, which is beyond the walls of social. You're seeing creators and their content being used everywhere. OLV, CTV, digital out-of-home display. They're in Super Bowl commercials. We spoke on a panel last week at Ad Age with Ferrara, who had a creator in their Super Bowl ad last year. This stuff has permeated everywhere. So how do you measure all of that? So this is just the 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and why? Let's be intellectually honest. Algorithms have challenged the value of organic reach. All creators feel that. All brands feel that. Performance lifts. I don't know how many split tests I've seen conducted where they take influencer content, they take BAU, brand business as usual content, test it against each other. I don't think I've ever seen BAU beat influencer. Influencer wins every single time. So everyone's trying to figure that out. And then consumer and behaviors. Raw and authentic, it's not just a social construct anymore. You throw in the first 3 seconds of a television commercial someone talking at camera in a really raw way, it typically performs better. McDonald's had a great one with their sauces where they left the TikTok metrics on the screen on the phone. They wanted you to know this was actual TikTok content. The more real it feels, the better it performs. This is not a social thing anymore. Then look at this. I mean, it's a lot of types of partnerships now, so it used to be so easy. Influencers just have big followings, and you work with influencers. Now there's UGC, which is user-generated, CGC, which is creator-generated, and the list goes on. I'm not going to talk to each of these. So it's getting complex. It's getting convoluted. Again, how do you measure it? And then the creator economy. A lot of times people ask, what percentage of marketing budget should I spend on influencer, which is a much better conversation to have these days than should I do influencer? That's kind of just high-level totals. Again, in our report, we do ask that question, and we splice it by segment so people can see. I think 10 to 25% is the vast majority of budgets. And then how you build an annual plan. So how do all those different types of content and creator ecosystems interact with one another? This is kind of how we think about it. It's you have large campaigns, you have evergreen content, you have product launches, sometimes you have shopper initiatives. So don't skip to the end. This is kind of how you build a strategy, and then you go from there. And I know I'm going fast, but I kind of have to. All right, so now the crux of the conversation is, okay, how do you actually measure this stuff? Let's talk about the 4 key pillars. One is what we all default to, social conversation. What were the reach? What were the impressions? What were the engagements? What was the view-through rates? All very important things. I'd argue the most underutilized in that is share of voice. What was my actual share of voice versus competitors pre, during, post? So that's social conversation. Media effectiveness, back to that testing versus BAU. How does this content perform in media? If you're spending $1 million on influencer marketing, I'd bet you're spending 50 to 100 million on paid media. So it's less about what did that 1 million do in the 1 million context. It's more about what did the 1 million do for the 50 to 100 million. So that's media effectiveness. Brand and sales lift. Again, back to kind of pick your route. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you actually measuring it? And then learnings and insights. I go back to this because, I just think this is so critical for this conversation is what is your actual goal? Be honest about it. The talent you pick should be based on that. The content brief you submit should be based on that. Everything should be based on what the actual goal is. And then let upper be upper and lower be lower. It's what it has to be. And if you want full funnel, that's fine. Sometimes you have to decide it's going to perform worse than something that was straight upper on upper metrics and worse than something that's straight lower and lower metrics. But I don't need that. I want something that is a bit more full funnel, so it kind of gives me the whole thing. Tiers, I know everybody asks this question, what tier should I use, macro, mid-tier, micro? There's no rule of thumb. Generally speaking, it is a bit funnel focused, where the larger the reach you have, the more awareness you are. But Mr. Beast, despite its controversy in the last 48 hours, can sell more product than probably anyone in the world. So that's lower funnel conversion, but there's no rule, but typically speaking, it follows the funnel. And then I wanted to show 2 things, upper versus lower, just to reiterate the point of the left is an upper funnel campaign, the right is a lower funnel campaign. The talent is different again, the content is different. These both perform very well in their own rights, but everything is different about them. The left isn't a lower funnel metric. The right is a lower funnel metric. They're just different things. You have to treat them differently. And there are ways to do quant on upper funnel. Like this is an example where you're actually testing brand lift quantitatively. What is the actual lift in brand? But this is all upper funnel metrics. So you do split tail tests are very, very common in this. And then lower funnel, if you are a bigger brand and you have MMM tracking through a Nielsen, through a Newstar, through an Ipsos, you can absolutely have influencer plug into that. I don't know where people get this notion from that influencer is less measurable than other marketing and media tactics. It's so untrue. This is MMM modeling, ROAS modeling. You're trying to figure out what's ROAS lift on creator and influencer marketing, and you see pretty incredible results. But again, if you know that going in, you brief differently, you pick creators differently, everything is different when it's lower funnel. So let's start with those 4 pillars. Let's start with social conversation. Sentiment analysis and breakdown, very, very important. So when you get comments on your posts, the comments have an intent to it. Everyone thinks of sentiment as positive and negative, which is important for sure, especially if you're trying to change perceptions. There's also intent of sentiment. And is that sentiment more about, I never knew this product existed, or is that sentiment, I'm literally have to buy this product right now? So analyzing what the sentiment is really, really important. I talked about share of voice, how underutilized it is. Share of voice just means pick 3 competitors of yours. What is my share of the social conversation in moments of time? Does that actually change when I work with creators and influencers? Does it drive a change in my share of voice? So very important to run share of voice. So that is social conversation metrics. I'm not putting a slide up on view-through rates and impressions and engagements. You all know what that stuff is. It's still very important. I'm not discounting social conversation metrics, but it's just one part of the story. It feels like for too many brands, it's the whole story. It's honestly one part of the story. And for CMOs, it might be the least important part because they're so focused on more quant data. So media effectiveness. First of all, let's define creator media. This is media bought using content developed by creators. That's what creator media is. I would go one step further and say key factors. So there's 3 types of media buys basically when you're a brand when it comes to creators. One is a brand handle buy. You're just taking the creator content, brand handle buying media. I'd argue that's going to perform the worst, but there's reasons to do it. You're trying to grow in your own audience. There's more brand recognition. 2 is boosting, which I think a lot of people might be familiar. A creator posts, you bring that post to more people. The 3rd, which is what we implement, is allow listing. So allow listing is you take the creator's account and you have rights to things within the account to optimize it, then scale the content. What works for a creator organically with their audience will not always work in media. They get much more license to tell a longer story, to, I won't say bury the brand, but not have it be so upfront, to write longer copy posts. You don't get that luxury in paid media. When you boost, you don't get to do anything to the post. You have to promote it as is. When you allow list, you have a lot more control over that. What is our learning agenda? We always try to have a learning agenda. So when we're working with different creators, this is what's so unique. I used to pay a lot of money when I was on the brand side to do one-way glass interviews behind a glass wall to learn what people think. This is real-time opinions. If you want to segment your content, this one's tastes great, this one's less filling, this one's socially responsible, this one's sustainably sourced. You can segment and test your messaging. We always try to have a learning agenda. What are the usage rights? Timing and channels. So how long do I have with the content? What channels do I have with the content? Again, this stuff is being used everywhere right now. If you watch, how many of you have cable? There's a few still have cable. CTV ads, heavily social driven. Look at what Old Navy does. Look at what Applebee's does. This is very social driven content. And then is it designed to travel is a huge question. I already talked about this. You gotta design for paid media in mind. And sometimes the content as it's created by the creators can satisfy that need. Oftentimes it does not. The amount of time we spend in post, even though we're a creator company, we're an influencer marketing company, it's the influencers who are creating the content, that's the focus of our organization, but how much time is spent in post, re-optimizing, redeveloping, improving, it's a lot. And I think this is one of my favorite slides, is just how you adapt a single piece of content coming from a creator for every single channel. And the number of CTV ads we've developed using 9:16 portrait-oriented content, the number of OLV ads, display ads, PDP page placements for e-com. I mean, you're already paying the money, right? You've spent the money with the creator. There is so much you can do with the content from there. I want to show you 2 examples. So let's do a CTV ad on the left, and then we'll do a digital ad at home on the right. So CTV is a 16:9, right? It's a full screen. All the creator content is 9:16. It's story-based. So how do you adapt 9:16 content for a 16:9 format? And then we call these stitched videos, where we take the best content, stitch it into a hero asset, put some brand bumpers so it feels a bit more polished. A lot of times I see social and influencer leads who want to use a single asset, but maybe the broader brand teams are not comfortable pumping that much media dollars into such a raw asset. Really good way to keep the raw, but put it into a TV format.
How do you feel about ordering Denny's?
Ooh, I want an omelet.
My friends and I are obsessed with Denny's because they have everything. Let me show you.
I can sit right at home and make my orders seamlessly. I have my personalized profile and even digital wallet for purchases.
Ordered it right to my door. It took like 20 minutes tops. It was a little bit too quick and easy, if you know what I mean. Like I'm gonna be doing it all the time. Denny's new ordering app is the best.
I mean, how much work is that to create that spot without the social influencer campaign? And that is just a little stitch video that comes after. So like each of those creators had a whole posting schedule, reached their audience, they have influencer, and then you just turn it into something that works so much harder for you. I must have hit twice. I don't know if you saw the Bacardi one. But this was no sound, right? But it's digital out-of-home. That's a very long screen. QR code so people who are in the streets could scan it to try it. But again, you have 15s of that, 6s of that, 3s of that. You can just cycle quickly. So again, one piece of content or one creator campaign, when you look at what it does to your broader content ecosystem, it is pretty amazing. Then for media. So this is such a dumbed down chart, but I love it. Take your average media performance, whatever you buy on CPM, CPV, CPC, CPE, CPA, draw your trend line. Then take all your creator assets, test them in media, scatter plot them. What starts coming to the top? What is beating the average? Number one, you're almost stacking the odds in your favor. You're gonna find a lot that beats the average, I promise you. But two is what's consistent about those things? Are you learning anything about content given that analysis? And that's why, again, with BAU testing, it's almost not fair. You get a hero commercial, one asset, maybe a couple cut downs on that asset, you get 50, 100 pieces of creator content. You're just bound to have content that does better than the one hero asset. I talked about MMM, compare apples to apples. This is what I say every time when someone says, how are you measuring? How is your CMO looking at things on a weekly or monthly basis? What visualization are they looking at? Is it MMM? Is it just reach impression? Is it share of voice? If we can't plug into that, there's no amount of data I could feed you to tell you this worked that they're going to believe. So how do you plug into the broader measurement model of the company is critical. All right, so the next metric is actual lift. Brand lift, as some of you probably have run brand lift studies in your days, forced exposure is quite common. And then sales lift is actual retail sales study. So the difference is a brand lift is trying to analyze what is the shift in metrics like perception, favorability, awareness with a group that's interacted with the content and with a group that has not, and to see if the content drove any change in opinions. Sales lift has a few forms. One is you can run an actual store analysis. So a lot of CPG brands, I come from CPG, you can do in-store POS analysis. For some, it's more carting. So for all the talk of TikTok Shop, of YouTube affiliate, and we love all of it, the largest brands in the world, they don't sell direct to customer. They sell through Walmart, they sell through Target. They can't do these things at our immediate checkout. So for them, it's more about carting and how many products did I put in the basket. So we have carting integrations with companies and you could track how much is carted. So there's different ways to do awareness or lower funnel measurement. But you have to know, again, what is it? What is it that I'm trying to drive? This is carding. I'd say the best use of carding is things like recipes, things like beauty regimens. The more you could bundle, the better. So if I'm an influencer, I worked on Dove Men for many years. If I had an influencer say, I love this moisturizer with this face wash, with this cleanser, try it, let me know what you think. When you click, swipe, etc., we drop all the products directly into your cart in the next page you see, and now you're just one click away from checking out. So for these larger brands who don't sell direct, that is a really critical part of the equation. And then you're not just reporting on clicks, you're reporting on basket additions, percent by retailer, how large is the basket opportunity size, so you get much richer reporting for it. So it's not all about conversion, even when brands say conversion, for so many of them, car companies, financial services, conversion is intent more than it is checkout, more than it is to get to the end of the whole journey. And then use measurement partners. So we have a whole suite of measurement partners we use. You need third parties to grade the work. You can't just grade the work yourself. So these are kind of the core parties we work with for different purposes. But it's amazing what you can output on measurement. Then learnings and insights. There's something called a narrative map. Narrative mapping basically means if you take your columns, put all your RTBs, right? Quality, taste, better for you, sustainable packaging. You ask a brand manager, some of you are brand managers, you could probably write 50 to 100 things. And then on your rows, put your audience segments. And don't put like Jack and Jill and all that stuff. I love creative agencies, but put real audience segments. And then be honest about every single cell. Do I actually have a student just talking about taste? Do I have that as content? And have I tried that with media? Because too often you shoot a hero spot and you have every race, every gender, every age, every message, and it speaks to nobody. So, and we don't have endless money and people. I wish we did, but you have to make choices. You have to look at that grid. It's probably gonna be humongous because, again, your brand managers are gonna be like, we're great for 100 reasons. You have to start prioritizing which of these do I chew off. You might have seen in the trades, we launched something called the Creator Council a week or two ago. This is more about the missed opportunity for brands to actually get insights and data from influencers and not just treat them as content creators. These are people who are closer to your category and your consumers than anybody else in the world. We don't ask them enough questions. What should we be doing from a messaging perspective? What products should we be launching? What do you think of this roadmap we have from a comms perspective? Like, they're just gold sitting on the sidelines, and half the time you're paying them anyway to do content. You're just not thinking first about what should I ask them, how should I engage? So a huge opportunity there. So if you sum all of these up and you put them together, that's the impact. There's a difference between sitting with a CMO and saying, hey, I drove a 2.5x impression lift versus my target. That's one conversation you have. Another conversation you can have is, hey, we got a 3-point lift in share of voice. We reached 12 million people. Our media effectiveness is better by 12% on the 100 million that we're spending on media. We learned that these 3 messages resonate best with our audience, so we're gonna shape our plan. We lifted brand lift through a study by 2x. Like, that's the conversation I want to have with a CMO, and it's never gonna be that singular coefficient of this was just good or bad, thumbs up or thumbs down. So it takes a little bit more nuance for how you think about it. The 3 lessons I'd say is think bigger to business impact. That was my million versus 50 to 100. Just think bigger about what you're actually, the game you're playing. I think too often in influencer, we're playing the small game. What did those 5 people do with their audiences versus what did the content do for our business? Compare apples to apples. MMM is really important. And then facing the reality, just there is no one coefficient. So I opened by saying we have our report launching in 2 weeks. So we are doing something for Brandweek attendees where we're going to give them early access and a free report. So this is kind of your chance to do that. Just scan the QR and then you'll get your report. I know we have a few minutes for questions. If anybody has any questions, feel free, and let's make this a bit of a discussion. And I know we have a microphone. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions, influencer?
Thanks. Do you stitch any of this? Whoa, loud. Okay. Edgar from Avasta. Do you stitch any of this into like client CRMs or their CDPs, like just trying to manage this? Like, can they track people engaging with the influencers in their own email databases and such?
Yeah, good tee up. I guess I didn't really explain what we do at all. So Linqia, which is on your badges, all of you probably have our name on your badges. So we're one of the largest influence marketing agencies in the world. We have a tech platform. So for all of our clients, that's where they're approving everything, that's where they're accessing. To your point, a lot of clients will use some kind of CRM system. I had lunch and we were talking about Monday.com. We have a bunch of partners who use Monday.com for their content CRMs. There's clients who use like Bazaar Voice and Curate to syndicate content to target PDP pages. So yes, I think, again, whatever the company is using, ideally it's being plugged directly into that system. The most common would be content CRM, so people have access to the content. Data pushes to MMM, MTA models, that kind of stuff. And then the retail is becoming a lot more of a conversation to syndicate the content to PDP pages. Yelp and the travel industry figured this out a long time ago, but CPGs haven't, that no one wants to see your perfectly curated photos on Amazon. They want like real videos and real testimonials. So syndicating to that. And then boy, retail media is a really hot topic this last year, and they're all trying to get this type of content on their placements, so it's not just a product-sponsored ad in Walmart search.
Hi there, Ovi from MPM. Just a quick question, because like you are guys taking care of a lot of like different stores and platforms and everything. And recently Roblox like created their own commerce. Are you guys connected to it already with your own API, or is your API like open for all of those new platforms or not yet?
We haven't done Roblox yet on our side. They're paying out a lot right now and investing in creators. It's just a bit of a different mentality and goal and structure for why a brand goes into a world like that. So we haven't made any investments in that space quite yet. It's definitely becoming an interesting place for commerce, especially where people are trying to drive shoppability. So I think 3D worlds will get bigger over time. It still feels somewhat PR stuntish right now versus we're very focused on large scale business impact, and the content that you create in a 3D world has little translation to any other format. So it's less of a scalable thing. But similar to affiliate, we didn't talk about affiliate. I think every brand should be playing in 3D worlds in affiliate. I just don't know how much of a scalable, results-driven platform these are quite yet for the vast majority of large brands.
Hi, Whitney Magnuson, Northwestern Mutual. I hear you when you say incorporate these into your MMM models, but easier said than done. So do you have any advice about how to have that conversation with our data scientists and incorporating that into our models?
Yeah, usually I just call the very intelligent analytics person internally, make them jump on the phone with that person, and then they have to connect the dots. But a lot of it is tagging. So tagging structures in MTA are kind of similar to MMM. It's like an organization process beast. But it's so much simpler to implement. It's just hard to get the right people on the phone and to actually do the 3 steps needed to do it. But it's just tagging. It literally is like back-end tagging to make sure it feeds into the system. And then you get the reads directly. The problem with MMM is twofold. It's very lagged. So most companies have a 6 to 12 month lag on MMM results. And then 2 is it's very ROAS focused, which back to our let upper be upper and lower be lower. It's like a drug. You get then so attached to things that do well from MMM ROAS, and not to pick on Nike, but it's like the Nike model of like, look how good our performance ads are doing while the iceberg melts. Like it could distract from the equity of a business. So I still think logistically it takes steps, but they're very accomplishable steps as long as both sides have people who actually understand how to do it. And then the hardest part on the brand side is it's not going to be the users and the influencer leads typically. So they have to find like, who is it in my company that even knows how to direct? Once you link those, it's not hard. It should feed a good ecosystem, but it's hard to be overly reliant on a 6-month lag that's so lower funnel focused.
Hi, Ashley from an LA-based influencer marketing agency. I'm a brand strategist. I'm also going to get that meme tattooed on my back. So I think that's going to be important for future meetings.
It's going to take up a lot of your back.
Yeah, well, worthy cause. We talk a lot about the role that individual creators play in various brand campaigns, and I know you had a slide up there that talked about UGC creators, affiliate, ambassadors. Do you see, like, when we're casting or contracting talent, is it better to have a creator who has this expertise and function in one of those buckets, or are we looking for creators that kind of overlap in multiple buckets and can kind of serve different purposes at different touch points in a campaign?
Yeah, that's where the calendar thing to me is so impactful, because you have to kind of have the strategy before you could even know that. Because it's such a function of budget, how many creators do I need, or how many pieces of content do I need across what types of stuff, and then you can answer that. I'm a proponent of let each one do what they do best, and the more you add to their plate, the more watered down the whole thing is gonna look. So I'm a fan of let them be focused, but that doesn't mean when you look at it and you say, oh, we have a new product launch and it has this personality, wait a minute, that's good for the evergreen that we need to hit too, so why wouldn't we have them kind of span too and maybe do a longer term partnership? So I think it depends on the actual strategy, but I am a fan of let them do what they do best, and then let the systems be different. Affiliate to me is so different than other things that too many people are like, let's just make affiliate everything. I mean, good luck scaling for the average person an affiliate campaign to be like a brand equity campaign too. I don't know how you would do that. But I think they're all needed. Like, you need to turn a tap on for affiliate and let it trickle into your organization. Hopefully you don't overinvest in resources and dollars because it's affiliate. Maybe you need a little bit more hands-on for the influencers, content creators, et cetera. So to me, the annual calendar tells all.
Yvonne Kinzer, CMO Hoplar Brands. You mentioned in one of your slides proximity to the store. So I'm assuming you measure that based on GPS signal, but then how do you actually drive the attribution to the product in the basket within that retailer?
That's very hard to connect mobile proximity to conversion. I think so mobile proximity one, you nailed it on its head. It's like, you know, the placed world of how do you track when you get to a store. Movie theaters, McDonald's, like that stuff's good. Grocery gets a little dicey because you're going to a grocery store once or twice a week anyway, so how do you know you went off cycle to the one? Connecting one-to-one is very hard. Like we do stuff, Albertsons, we do all, which owns Safeway and all these grocery stores, so we get a lot more data through those partnerships than I think a lot would from a conversion standpoint at grocery. But that is hard to connect one data source to the other. I think it's almost treated separately. If I don't know if John, who was tracked on mobile proximity, was also the John of the conversion. Obviously, everyone's trying a lot harder to get the data sources to connect from credit card data and from purchase data. I think it's hard. I think they're almost today treated separately. How did we do in this mobile proximity? How did we do from a conversion standpoint? But as the retailers get more active, all the media groups from retailers, it's getting much closer to say, I can give you actual, based on card data, based on, for Albertsons, do you have an actual like number that you type in when you check out? It's getting much more seamless. Yeah. Okay. Do we have time for one more? No, I'm getting the wrap. I'll be here if you want to ask me questions. Thank you so much for coming. Hopefully everyone enjoyed.
Thank you all for attending today's workshop presented by Linqia. Main stage programming will resume momentarily.